six o'clock here on the West Coast, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we have a special presentation from our MRA ICAR delegates. So we'll be working through the four different groups, and we're going to start with Tom Wood. Tom Wood has been a member of the Alpine Rescue Team in Colorado for 25 years, serving as their field director for 4 years. He is the MRA's current terrestrial commission delegate to the International Commission for Alpine Rescue, otherwise known as ICAR. Tom's day job is that of a brand manager for AIRCOM and an instructor for elevated safety. He's also a rope access technician since 2008 and is a Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians, otherwise known as SPRAT, evaluator and level 3 technician. Tom has a bachelor's degree in photojournalism from Kent State University, served in the USMCR as a combat photographer, and also works as an author and freelance photographer. And if you haven't checked out Tom's book, it's a great read. We can chat the link to that in here. So with that, take it away, Tom.
That's great. Thanks, Carrie. And thanks everybody for showing up. We're going to talk tonight about the ICAR Commission reports that we turn in annually as members of the MRA. We're required as part of our election as delegates to inform the MRA of what we do when we're out there in Europe and see if we can also bring stuff from Europe, from the States back to Europe as well. So all of the delegates from all of the different commissions are pretty active in regards to giving presentations, doing demonstrations. So in the past, maybe it was a one-way communications channel where the MRA was learning from ICAR, and we've changed that in the last several years to the point where we're providing information to ICAR, and we have ICAR board members now that are from the United States and North America, as well as commission presidents. So I'll just jump into the part that's relatable to the Terrestrial Rescue Commission, and we'll give some highlights from what happened in Montreux, Switzerland last October. So I'm going to try and share my screen. I never know how this is going to go, so I'm going to rely on feedback from Carrie. Does that look like that's working?
When we tested it, there was a little bit of a delay, so we'll give it a second here. Maybe like 30 seconds.
I hope it's not that long.
There it is. You're good.
Cool. So myself and Dale Wong from Rocky Mountain Rescue are the terrestrial rescue delegates from the MRA. Our job is to present information to the MRA from ICAR and vice versa. So again, the last conference was in October in Montreux, Switzerland. And so as far as the Terrestrial Rescue Commission goes, I just have a few highlights here to kind of inform the membership of what was going on there and then what's coming down the pipe. All right, so cool. So before each of the conference proceedings, there's a practical day typically that involves everyone coming out and enjoying the weather and the local hospitality. Typically, this is set up and hosted by the local rescue team, and this year was no exception. So we had 9 different stations set up high up in the Swiss Alps, and roughly 200 rescuers came out to the practical day to observe the different to observe the 9 stations. As far as the terrestrial rescue things go, I'll just hit on a couple things that were highlights or definitely terrestrial rescue themed. The first station that we went to on the practical day was the cave rescue station, which seems kind of funny to have a cave rescue demonstration, you know, at 9,000 or 10,000 feet up in the Swiss Alps. But the techniques that were presented are unique, they're not unique to cave rescue. They could also be applied to mountain rescue. This was presented by EURAC, the European Association for Cave Rescue, the Swiss Mountain Rescue Group, and the Croatian Mountain Rescue and Cave Rescue Organization. So it was a joint effort to demonstrate what we would consider small party rescue demonstrations. So these apply whether you're underground or above ground. And these were all single rope technique, or SRT if you love all your acronyms, where we're trying to effect a rescue of someone using a small group of folks with minimal gear that probably they have with them. And typically these are rescues that are affected by people who are with the group that become injured or have an issue. The first one was that they demonstrated was a climbing counterweight system using ascending gear. So typically these folks don't use prusiks like we often see in the mountains. These are mechanical ascenders, mechanical descent devices. And what they're typically trying to work with is how to use a human's body weight to move a package or a patient up or down a system. So that also includes rappelling with a counterweight or possibly a diminishing loop counterbalance, which sounds really cool, but basically means you climb up and they go down and it's all connected. Hopefully the delay on the slides isn't too cumbersome here. The other station that was of great interest to those of the folks that are in terrestrial rescue was the helicopter rescue litter bags, and it was a comparison and contrast station where they brought in 5 or 6 different manufacturers of helicopter rescue bags. In the past, we would always just generically refer to them as Bauman bags here in the US, but over in Europe, they've been using these for quite a long time, and they've progressed kind of above what we typically see in the United States, to the point where they had an issue recently where in the EU, they wanted to classify these heli bags as medical devices. So it's already a problem in terms of just litters in the EU, where they consider litters medical devices. So the amount of testing and procedures to go through to get them certified is quite lengthy, as I know from personal experience now. So they were trying to avoid this problem with the heli bags because it's cumbersome on the rescue teams there, and it makes a lot of hoops that they have to jump through to buy a product that would be considered a medical device. So hopefully the ICAR commission that was put together to respond to this problem has made an impact. They wrote a letter in opposition of the statement, and I think it was very well received. And hopefully any of the other folks that are on this call from ICAR, if this was a definitive resolution that they are not going to consider them medical devices, please feel free to jump in when it's your turn. One of the other things that I want to also highlight is that the Terrestrial Commission, we are run by a president and a vice president. So Gebhard Barbish is our commission president. Kirk Mothner is our vice president. And each commission has a president and vice president, as you'll hear from the other members that are here tonight. And the Terrestrial Rescue Commission is the largest of the 4 commissions. So the photo you're seeing there was one of the demonstrations that was given by some of the local folks in regards to how to rescue a person who was a paraglider out of a tree using basically arborist techniques. So basically a traveling skate block that they set up, which was pretty cool. In terms of the business that was done for the Terrestrial Rescue Commission, what we were working on this year was how we're going to work with UIAA on certain topics. So it's a joint collaborative effort. And what we're looking at working on are via Ferrata rescue standards for lighter persons, chin strap braking force standards for climbing helmets, creating a testing standard for rope cutting resistance over an edge, rigging plates, interference with avalanche transceivers, which, as we all know, is a huge problem with all the electronics that we carry around with us these days. And then also some stuff on fixed anchors. So the Terrestrial Rescue Commission, though it's quite large and covers a lot of different languages, tends to have a pretty similar focus in regards to the issues that everyone's faced with and that we try to resolve for each conference. One of the biggest issues, there's one of the social evenings that was put on by the Swiss there. This was a really large conference for ICAR this year. And what that means is it's getting more expensive for ICAR members to attend. We're limited by the size of places in the shoulder seasons that we can afford to send people to. And there's some serious concerns that I'm sure Charlie is going to address with the strategic planning side of things, that are we just a conference or are we something else? So we're trying to figure out who we are when we want to grow up. And that is definitely a conversation that we often have in the Terrestrial Rescue Commission. Also, each commission puts together recommendations annually, and these are reviewed every 5 years. We had 10 this last year that we reviewed as part of their review cycle. No changes were recommended. You can look into the ICAR website, and that will list all of the recommendations from each different commission. And that's a good basis for some of the teams that are looking for guidance on things such as, the difference between static and low stretch and dynamic ropes, and what ICAR thinks about that. So we try to stay away from legislating too much, but we do like to make recommendations based on best practices of end users. With that, I'm going to save my questions till the very end, as same as everyone else. And I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over to the next presenter, which I believe might be Charlie.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Sure, thank you, Carrie.
Yeah. So introducing Charlie. Charlie's a veteran of Charlie Szymanski he's a veteran of the Alpine Rescue Team. He has been past president of the MRA. He's a recognized expert in helicopter rescue operations and risk management. He's participated in hundreds of mountain rescue operations and serves as the Mountain Rescue Program Coordinator for Flight for Life Colorado, and is the current MRA delegate for Air Rescue Commission with ICAR and serves as president of that commission. Charlie also serves as the MRA Educational Committee Chair and is the author of several helicopter rescue training programs. Among a very long list of experience and qualifications, Charlie has also served as a member of the FEMA National Advisory Council. So as with everybody presenting this evening, everybody's got a long list of qualifications. Please know I am abbreviating just in the space of time. So we're very privileged to have you guys all here. And that being said, it's your turn, Charlie. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Carrie, and Tom, well done. Tom has covered a couple of sort of introductory comments. So Carrie, rest assured, my time will come a little bit shorter, given Tom's great presentation and in fact, your introduction of me. I assume you can see my presentation, Carrie?
Yes, I can.
All right. So yeah, it's a privilege to report to you all, and a privilege to serve as a MRA delegate to the Air Rescue Commission. We don't take that lightly, because the MRA supports each of the commission delegates in important ways, and in ways that that cost the MRA, and so we're very grateful for all of that. So with that, I'm going to go through, and maybe in 10 minutes, Carrie just gave you all of my credentials, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I will tell you it's always good to promote my program, which is Flight for Life Colorado, the first ever helicopter EMS program in the country. We serve rescue teams that have response areas of 54 different mountains above 14,000 feet. So it's a privilege to be part of that Flight for Life program. Tom did a great job of giving you the high level on the ICAR Congress of Montreux, Switzerland just last year. So I'm not going to spend too much time. I will cherry pick a couple of presentations that took place, one of which was Air Zermatt, one of the stations during the demonstration and the practical day was the RECO SAR helicopter detector, which hangs below the helicopter and helps locate lost subjects who may have RECO tabs on their ski boots, their skis, their clothing, their backpacks, whatever it might be. We are all familiar with the handheld detectors we operate on the ground, not unlike an avalanche transceiver. But the RECO SAR helicopter detector is unique insofar as it allows us to use RECO 12 months out of the year to search for even lost souls who may have a RECO SAR unit on their clothing or whatever it might be. We also had REGA. You saw one of Tom's photo included the REGA helicopter. REGA is the helicopter rescue program that operates in much of Switzerland. They brought up an AW109, which is their highly specialized rescue helicopter with hoist, a FLIR camera, and a mobile phone locator by LifeSeeker. They also brought up their medical response helicopter, which is a typical aircraft that they're flying now, an H145D3 from Airbus. So they were one of the stations so people could look at the most modern Swiss helicopters. I do want to update, I just dropped this slide in while Tom was talking, and Tom, glad to tell you that because of ICAR's work, we have clarified that rescue bags will not be required to be registered as medical devices in Europe. It largely came out of one rescue bag that asked to be identified as a medical device, and we've been able to stop the notion that all rescue bags should be required to be registered as medical devices. So that the word on that should come out from ICAR very, very soon, that rescue bags as medical devices, thanks to the work that ICAR has done, will not be an issue. So this is the room that Tom and the terrestrial rescue members sit in. It seats about 400, 450 or so, which is about the capacity of this year's last conference. It also serves as the room where sometimes other commissions come in and we do joint trainings. The air rescue meeting room, we had more than 100 participants in air rescue meeting room. And if you look back, going back to Bulgaria, we had 35. And so we've seen dramatic growth in the air rescue room, and super excited to see that. And we've even had presentations by many American representatives, including Clayton Horney from the Colorado National Guard, Colorado Hoist Rescue team. And I'm happy to introduce Dale Wang in just a minute to share a little bit of Clayton's presentation. I won't read all of these, but I've got 4 pages of 20 different presentations that were given in the Air Rescue Commission meeting room during 2 days. Accidents, incidents, and prevention are a big part of what we do. We are focusing now a lot on programs that operate in the vicinity of paragliders and base jumpers, not just how to rescue them, but how to fly into an area that's like a hornet's nest with base jumpers and paragliders flying all over in our airspace. We had presentations. Terry Miauchi at the top of the list used to run the Arizona Department of Public Safety out of Arizona, where we'll be spending the MRA Summer Conference in June. I mentioned the Clayton Horney piece, that bullet in the middle, and the European equivalent of FAA is called EASA. It's the bottom bullet, and the head of their rotorcraft program comes to ICAR meetings every year. We have a drone work group. We have presentations by cell phone tracking devices, litter spin stabilization programs. And Laura McGladrey we were so thrilled to have Laura at the conference this year. She did 2 presentations, including one on pre-incident planning, sort of planning for that accident we hope will never happen, but may come upon us. These are the last slides of the program I wanted to tell you about, the last of which is Gerald Biener, former president of ICAR and the former and the CEO of Air Zermatt, who did a really great program on the past, present, and future. So with that, grab your phones and keep in mind this presentation tonight is going to be recorded and will show up on the MRA Facebook page within a few days. But Topograph Media every year does 2 videos of our entire conference. So I encourage you to grab these QR codes that link you to their Vimeo pages, and if not, pull this down off the recording. And with that, I'm going to introduce Dale Wang. There are 2 delegates to every commission, and Dale is the other Air Rescue Commission delegate. You notice Tom talk about Dale. He was the Terrestrial Commission delegate for many, many years, and due to a vacancy, and thanks to Oyvind Henningsen for his great work as the other Air Rescue Commission delegate from a few years, Dale has moved over and joined the Air Rescue Commission due to his experience. Dale, I'll let you introduce yourself and I'll drive through your slides.
Thanks, Charlie, and thanks everyone tonight. I am the current group leader at Rocky Mountain Rescue Group here in Boulder, and I'm one of the hoist rescue technicians for the Colorado Hoist Rescue Program. And so I just thought it would be interesting for the MRA audience to just hear 3 or 4 slides about one of the presentations at ICAR, which was from this program, which is a collaboration between the National Guard and 4 MRA teams in Colorado. So next slide. So it's about the research or the testing that we did on dynamic hoist profiles for litters. And for those of you who work with the military, you know, the tagline is still really the standard procedure for hoist, whereas in the Central Alps, dynamic flyout has become really the standard procedure. And so we wanted to present to the Air Rescue Commission some of the testing we did to investigate why certain profiles, flight profiles, work for better for different aircraft. So next slide, just a 20-second video so that we're all clear on what we're talking about. So that was a hoist extraction of a woman who got in her pelvis crushed when a llama fell on top of her in a stream. And you can see that the litter gets hoisted up, and as soon as it clears the treetops, the aircraft starts flying, and there's no spin, even with no tagline. So next slide. So in the 0 airspeed or static hoist configuration, right, all the downwash comes down, the red and the yellow right over the litter, which is the gray bar in the middle. Next. And so when you have forward flight, then all that downwash, the red and yellow, is now behind the litter, the gray bar. And so next slide. And so this is a slide, and there's many of these slides, but I just wanted to show you the type of thing that we presented. And I think it's interesting for the audience to know that at ICAR, some of the presentations can get, you know, pretty technical because the audience is typically that of a bunch of experienced rescuers. So on the left, there's cable length with 0 at the top and 200 feet at the bottom. And on the x-axis is airspeed with 0 knots at the left and 40 knots on the right. And so you can see we did testing with, this is a litter under the aircraft loaded with a rescue Randy. And you can see the leftmost column, which is static hoist. All that dark red is areas of potential where the litter starts spinning. So everywhere from 120 feet of cable all the way up to within 30 feet of the aircraft. And so you can see that as you pick up airspeed, 5, 10, 15, and when you get to 20 knots or the middle column, there's just no spin anywhere because all that downwash is behind the aircraft. And so each aircraft has its own different profile, looks like this. The red areas are different at different cable lengths, and the amount of cable out and the speed that you need to go varies depending on the different aircraft. So we presented this because although the Europeans in the Central Alps have been doing this for a long time, there's really been very little testing to find out exactly why it works or exactly how you calculate the right flight profile for your aircraft. It turns out that the key number is about 1.5 to 2 times the size of your rotor disc as far as cable length. So for this aircraft with like a 60-foot rotor disc, you need to be about 120 feet below the aircraft before you're really guaranteed not to spin when you start flying forward from 0 knots. If you're in a A-Star or H-125 with a 34-foot rotor diameter, you might only need to be 50 feet below. So I thought it would be just interesting for the MRA to see that teams from the MRA are giving presentations at ICAR, and just so you kind of understand the types of things that get presented in the Air Rescue Commission. That's it. Charlie, back to you.
Thank you, Dale. I've listed Dale's email here if anyone wants to follow up with him. Not only, Dale, are they are MRA related organizations making these kinds of presentations, but we did a survey of all of our Air Rescue Commission people in the room, 100 of them, and Clayton's presentation ended up rating third out of the top out of the 20. It was in the top 3. So thank you, Dale. Just real quickly, Air Rescue Commission projects we're working on. I mentioned we have a drone work group. We're working a lot on rescues of and flying around paragliders. And we participated in a study on the effect of rapid rise to high altitude for rescue helicopter crews. And there's a new paper that the MedCom is working on primarily that we're co-writing on rescue at very high altitude. Always interested in your incident and accident reports. Take a screenshot of this QR code if you want to see my AIRCOM report that was sent out to everybody throughout the world. I think it's about a 12 or 14 page report. So really quickly on the ICAR board, because unlike the other delegates of MRA to ICAR, I serve on the board as the ICAR Air Rescue Commission president, and I'm leading this strategic planning work. And I just wanted to give you just a quick glimpse into some of the work that we're doing. I'm in Europe a couple times a year at board meetings in Zurich. And we developed a strategy framework where we're really digging deep into who exactly do we serve and what services do we provide, how do we deliver those services, and then how do we come up with all the resources to make those services delivered in a super high quality way. We have come up with 9 initiatives. We have so many Zoom meetings, I can't keep track. And we have a task force on each one of these 9, looking at the structure of the organization. We'll be sending out a needs assessment, looking at our plan to grow and what do we do. Tom was spot on. There's so many people at our congresses. What are we doing to make sure they're interactive and not just come to an event and sit and watch somebody give a talk that I could have watched on Zoom. So these are all the things that we're working on, the 9 initiatives. And with that, I just want to say thank you. My email address is there, as well as Dale's. We are the 2 delegates to the ICAR Air Rescue Commission. And Carrie, I'll throw it back to you and be happy to answer questions at the end. And I'll keep an eye open on the Q&A.
Thank you, Charlie and Dale. Next up, we have Michael Finger. Michael is a search and rescue veteran of 25 plus years and currently serves for the last 15 years on Salt Lake County SAR team. He served as president of the team and an assistant commander, and is our current MRA delegate for the ICAR Avalanche Commission. Thank you, Michael. You are up.
All right. Let's see here. I think we went through this earlier, so in my screen. Oh wait, I gotta clear it. There we go.
Yes.
Too many screen sharing applications in my life. Yeah, so I'm the current ICAR Avalanche delegate, and the other delegate is Ryan Clerico. He helped write the report, but unfortunately he couldn't attend tonight. I believe he's out of the country. Yeah. So, as we mentioned, there's going to be a little bit of repetition, I think, so we get to the 3rd and 4th presentation. But, ICAR was 2022 was in Switzerland. One big change of the Avalanche Commission was that Stephanie Thomas of Teton County Search and Rescue was elected AVCOM president last year, and this was her first time serving, as an in-person conference. For various political reasons and whatnot, the Avalanche Commission's been a little disorganized in the past. it was really a welcome change to have someone that's been very engaged and very organized in this leadership. There's a lot of renewed energy and interest in kind of getting things back on track this year, which was really nice. As Charlie and Tom mentioned, the first day was a field day. A lot of cool stuff was demonstrated. As Charlie mentioned, one of the things was the RECO long range demo. The RECO reflectors are now becoming more common in four-season apparel, and can help find lost hikers and whatnot during the summertime, not just the winter season. RECO has 11 helicopter-based long-range receivers in North America. So maybe find out where the closest one is to you and how you would go about requesting it or getting that resource if you happen to need it. Usually the Avalanche Commission starts off with accident reporting. One big discussion this year was how do we make these reports useful rather than rehashing of grim statistics that go on and on, unfortunately. One thing was, how do we standardize the reports to allow us for more empirical data? And, how do we use this in the Avalanche Commission? Another theme that was kind of started in the last in-person meeting in Poland and was kind of continued this year was we wanted to have some working groups. 4 areas were identified: prevention, partnerships, recommendations, and common language and statistics work groups. These groups have been meeting monthly through Zoom. Stephanie's been organizing that, and we in fact had a meeting this morning. So that's kind of let us move things forward rather than waiting 1 year between seeing each other. So I mentioned partnerships, working with companies or other organizations that help with avalanche rescue issues. More on that in a second. Recommendations. The Avalanche Commission has had avalanche rescue recommendations, but most of these are dated and haven't been updated since 2015. One question is who should be the audience of AVACOM's recommendations? Mountain users, mountain rescue teams, or both. And one area they wanted to focus on was recommendations regarding the implementation of incident command structures for organized avalanche rescue responses. A lot of companies or countries have their own ICS recommendations, but it was thought that maybe we could go through them and kind of come up with some best practices or themes. Another working group is common languages and statistics. The idea of an international avalanche accident and incident database has been the dream of a lot of people. I know like Dell Atkins has tried to do some work on it, but it's been an elusive beast. One of the biggest barriers to this has been the lack of standards and languages. Avalanches are also a low occurrence event for most teams. Usually we do a lot of calls for twisted ankles and whatnot in the summer, and then maybe 1 or 2 avalanche related calls in the winter. And one of the ideas of this is by gathering these statistics, because it's a low occurrence event, is what techniques and equipment are teams using for avalanche rescue and what was the outcome. There's been a lot of theories put forward on like, hey, maybe we could do this and it can make things really efficient. But how do you move those out of maybe the academic realm and come up with some more empirical evidence that they're practical or work well in the chaotic environment of a real rescue. Another thing that came up is out of this too is what role do we play in ICAR and even as rescuers? Where does the Avalanche Commission sit in regards to forecasting and avalanche centers? Avalanche forecasting and accident investigations have a different role and scope versus mountain rescue. Hopefully prevention should be a common theme across both organizations. How to best engage forecast centers in the US might be an interesting topic for the MRA. And kind of around this too, I was talking to Stephanie this morning, it'd be nice to get a survey out to the MRA teams and the members on, what do what are some of the roles, different roles that the team's playing in the winter, and the individuals. I know, you know, within a team, you might have people that are a forecaster and an MRA team member, and you know, how often did that, or how often does that overlap, and how do people see themselves fitting in those different roles? Joe Obed of the Canadian Avalanche Association had a recent workshop with equipment manufacturers and avalanche professionals to discuss transceiver electrical interference. He held a small working group that got together September of last year in Salt Lake with the initial stated goal to hone in on desired behavior and outcomes. The current recommendation for manufacturers is that avalanche beacons should be 20 centimeters from other electrical devices when in SIN mode and 50 centimeters in search mode. You know, and as rescuers, that's probably easier said than done when you've got a radio on your chest and other stuff going on. And if you're interested in Joe about joining this group, I've got his email here, and as Charlie mentioned, this will be recorded if anybody wants to get at this. Felix Muir gave a presentation on a software tool he had written to help determine avalanche beacon reception distance called Search Path. Felix was really involved with Barry Vox and getting, I think, one of the first commercial avalanche beacons to market. And he's got a pretty deep electrical engineering background. It was a little over my head, but hopefully, you know, if someone out there is doing research in this would be worth looking at. And this can be found at his website, again, on the screen. MountainSafety.info had an update. After 6 years of work with version 1 of their platform, Mountain Safety Info is implementing a major update of their online content management, collaboration, review, and translation tools. Workgroup collaboration tools exist in almost 20 languages, allowing subject matter experts from all over the world to share their know-how and to contribute to translation without the barrier of having to manage a user interface in a foreign language. So look forward to that. And to kind of wrap things up, Laura McGladdery of Responder Alliance spoke to multiple commissions. Ortovox and Arc'teryx airbags, Arc'teryx showed the new airbag that uses a super capacitor, and it's already been recalled. So hopefully we'll see that in market next year. And Aerosize, a Polish company, showed off an airbag vest that looks similar to an inflatable life vest. Their goal was to make a unit that could be worn with or without a backpack. So something that air crews or Department of Transportation workers could utilize, you know, people that don't traditionally wear backpacks when they're moving around. And I guess too, I'll throw it out there, you know, kind of a North American end of season or mid-season update, avalanche wise. Canada's having a rough year. They've had 12 fatalities last year or so far. They've had a deep buried persistent weak layer that's been causing them problems, and they've had a lot of accidents where multiple people have been caught and carried. And the US is at 16 fatalities so far. This is probably trending towards our normal yearly average of around 20. Most regions in the West are having an above average year snowpack wise. So hopefully things will start to wind down that way. It's about all I had. I think figured who was next.
Okay, I've got it. Thank you very much, Michael.
Okay.
Next up is Christopher Van Tilburg. He's an American physician, rescue mountaineer with Hood River Crag Rats and Portland Mountain Rescue, an award-winning author of 11 books, including 2 previous mountain rescue memoirs. He's chair of the MRA Medical Committee and the MRA alternate delegate to the ICAR MedCom Medical Commission. Christopher works as an emergency and clinic physician, a public health officer, a medical examiner, and has worked as an expedition physician on 6 continents, as a cruise ship doctor, a team leader on 5 humanitarian medical trips to Haiti. And with that, I'll turn it over to Christopher.
Thank you very much, Carrie. I really appreciate that. My piece will be short. I want to say a couple of things. First is I'm the alternate delegate for the MRA's alternate delegate. Dr. Allison Sheets, who's not here, is the delegate and does a fabulous job. She works very hard on behalf of the MRA, representing us at ICAR. She's working tonight, I believe. The second thing I want to say is I'm very honored to represent the MRA. We are elected by the MRA, us delegates, and it's just an incredible honor, and it's very rewarding to go to ICAR. And so I'm very thankful that the MRA supports this. I'm going to see if I can show my screen here. I only have a few slides. Is that coming through okay? Yes.
Yes, it looks
Okay.
fine.
Yes.
Okay. So the MRA, or sorry, the ICAR Medical Commission is maybe a little bit different than other commissions in that we are a group of rescue mountaineers that have a medical interest and or credentials. And our goal is to look at problems and generate recommendations that we publish in medical journals. And so, most of our discussions revolve around writing papers that can then be published in medical journals that can be sort of documented as either recommendations from ICAR, or sometimes they're not recommendations, sometimes they're just papers. So a good example is Karina Schoen, who's a pathologist in Bern, Switzerland, who works with the folks in the Alps. She recognized there's a problem that mountain rescuers without medical training needed some advice on how to pronounce somebody dead in the field when they come across somebody who appears to be dead, and they don't have any skills at doing, pronouncing people dead. And so she wrote a really nice paper that is how a non-medical rescuer determines determines somebody's dead in the mountains. And so that's the kind of paper, and it was published. And it's a paper that I quote in my own teachings, very well written paper. And so that's what we do. I think we were for a while the only commission that had a second meeting every year. It was in a different location. We had a spring meeting that was separate from all of the other commissions, medical meeting only. And I think possibly Charlie started that with AIR, but Allison, Dr. Sheets is, I think, the only MRA delegate who's gone to these spring meetings. And so there are work meetings. And so we have our own website. This is the ICAR MedCom website that we have. And we have a forum similar to the MRA's Slack forum where we can kind of communicate and share papers. Some of the things that have already been mentioned, the rescue bed being classified as a medical device. I saw the summary from that came out February 21st of this, so that is available. And hopefully we don't have medical or rescue equipment classified as medical devices in the United States. That would be a disaster. Michael and Charlie both mentioned the Reco mounted from aircraft. So we used that in Washington just I think 3 weeks ago on the Kolchak Glacier avalanche that killed 3 people. And I think that was Everett Mountain Rescue's helicopter and their Reco. So we're using this stuff in the United States. So the only thing I really wanted to mention was one of our recent papers. This was just published. We worked on this for a couple of years and we finalized it at ICAR in Montreux, Switzerland. And this was just published, I think, about a month or so ago. This is medical treatment for avalanche victims. And there are, I think, Allison Sheets and I worked on this. Ken Zaffron worked on it. Martin Musey, who's an MRA member from Colorado, worked on it. Ron Martin, who's a member of my team, Hood River Craigrats, his PhD's in, I think, water sanitation, but he worked on it. I think Ron did saw some email traffic, basically, I think from Stephanie Thomas, that said, we're looking for help on this paper. And he played an important role. He actually edited the whole thing for English language accuracy. So anyway, this is our paper. Just sort of quick review. We were addressing the problem of hypothermia in avalanches. So this is cause of death for avalanches is about 24% trauma, 74% asphyxia, and 2% hypothermia. We think that trauma is probably closer to 33% of avalanche fatalities. And the probability of survival is very, very low when you get past about 35 minutes. So the problem really, one of the problems we're addressing with our paper is how we treat hypothermic patients, because we know people who have hypothermia can survive when they appear to be dead. They have no vital signs, no pulse, no breathing, but hypothermia is very protective. And so people can live longer and they can appear to be lifeless. And so this is one of two checklists, if you will, or memory aids that are in the paper. It's very busy. I'm not a big fan of it, but the summary is that when you arrive on the scene of an avalanche, in the United States and in Canada, we're a little slower to arrive than they are in Europe, because in the Alps, particularly, they use helicopters. But when you arrive, the key things is time of avalanche, how long is somebody buried, and when you're digging them out, if you can remember to do this, is their airway full of snow? Is it jammed full of snow, or is it not full of snow? And so in the middle part of this checklist, basically everybody gets CPR. And then you might consider stopping CPR if they are buried over 60 minutes, because the chance of survival goes down. If their airway is jammed full of snow, which means they probably asphyxiated. And if they have no cardiac movement in their heart. We're a group of medical professionals, and we're looking at the best possible medical outcome, somewhat regardless of resources. But in this paper, this is based on having an EKG on site. So here's a better way to look at it. And these are not my favorite graphs, but if you arrive on scene and you start CPR on everybody, hopefully before you're fully extricated them, because extrication on a deep burial takes 20, 30, 40 minutes. But if you're extricating somebody, if they have lethal injuries, you might consider stopping CPR. If they have a long burial, if you go down the left-sided here and they have no heart function and their airway is jammed full of snow, you can consider stopping CPR. But people who have the potential to possibly be unresponsive due to hypothermia, those people, we recommend that you do CPR for as long as you can until you can transfer them to definitive care. So these would be people, if you can measure their temperature and you know that they're hypothermic, you're going to keep resuscitating these people. So here's the short version is, if you're on the scene of an avalanche, start CPR, and then consider terminating CPR if they have had a long burial, no cardiac function, and their airway is completely compacted, full of snow. And that's sort of the short version. That's all I have. I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be a delegate, alternate delegate for the MRA. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. And thank you all for your presentations. Beyond that, thank you all to all of our delegates, our alternate delegates, and to John Chang, the committee chair, for your time and dedication and bringing this back to the MRA and the community at large. So with that said, if there are any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, questions or comments, and we can give a few minutes for that before we wrap it up.
Hey, Carrie, while we're waiting,
Yeah.
can I just add one thing? Christopher talked about spring meetings of the different commissions. And although we have not sent the formal invitation out yet because the date was just chosen in the last 48 hours. Mark your calendar for May 23rd, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, and I guess that's noon for our friends on the East Coast. ICAR is going to have its first annual online virtual conference, different from the Congress in that we're not going to have presentations of people teaching great stuff. But what we're going to do is something actually very like tonight. It'll be 3 hours long. And every commission is going to update on the important work that we want rescuers to know around the world that we've been working on. So every commission will take 30 minutes. And again, that date is May 23rd at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll be sending out a save the date in the next week, and I'll make sure Allison sends that out to everybody in the MRA through the listserv. So
And
that's
how would
gonna-
they join? How would they join that?
Well, it'll be a Zoom. It'll be
Okay.
almost exactly like this. It'll be Zoom, and as we get closer to the date, we'll send out the Zoom link. Anybody who's affiliated with an MRA team can join it. It will be limited to MRA members only, but every one of the 2,000 or 3,000 individuals that are part of MRA teams are invited to join, and you'll get a Zoom link. So hope I killed enough time for people to post any questions in chat.
Not seeing any questions. Your presentations were great. Okay, I see one question. Christopher, this one's for Christopher. It was mentioned in training that intermittent CPR, if you have to stop for litter transport for hypothermic patients, may have a positive outcome.
Yeah, that's a great point. That was Ron Martin. Yeah, we and ICAR MedCom did address that in previous meetings, that if you are doing CPR on somebody who's hypothermic and you have to stop to move them, to ski them down, to get over an obstacle, it's completely acceptable in a mountain rescue situation with a hypothermic patient to stop CPR and then restart it. And we have several case studies that support that this is acceptable.
Thank you.
I noticed Rick Lorenz just posted about whether this program will be posted for folks. Yes, it'll be on the MRA's YouTube just as fast as I can knock out and edit, which should hopefully be in the next couple of days. And then also just carrying on with Christopher, if I could follow up on that last question. Do you know, Christopher, how common Lucas devices are in terms of delivery of an automated compression unit? I know our Fly for Life program, we have them at every base. And when requested, we'll fly them to an avalanche scene. I don't know how, I know we demoed them in Poland. The Polish rescue team demoed them for during a hoist where they were able to keep compressions going during a one-up with the patient. Do you know how common they are, Christopher, by any chance?
Yeah, there's 2 devices that are available in the US. What Charlie's talking about is mechanical CPR. It straps on a patient's chest and it does CPR without having a rescuer having to do it. And they are very effective. And they are very common now in EMS, ground transport EMS teams in the United States. They are slow to come in rural United States because they're expensive. They're $20,000, 17,000. I think we priced one a couple of months ago, and so they are probably are going to be like AEDs. You know, a while back we were like, oh, we aren't going to see AEDs in airports and schools, and now we do. And probably mechanical CPR will become the standard in 5 to 10 years. So I would say everybody, my recommendation to do what we do on Mount Hood, find out which ground teams have a mechanical CPR device. So if you need it, you can ask them to give it to you and take it up the mountain and strap it on somebody's chest. The batteries don't last forever. They do take a little while to get to know how to use them, but they are many urban ambulance and rural ambulance companies have them.
And I'll just add that our Flight for Life program has protocols in place now to fly them to the scene of an avalanche rescue, even while the rescue is underway and nobody's been found, where we're happy to drop off our Lucas device at the bottom of the avalanche in case somebody's found, and let the rescuers take it up to the scene and use it while they're transporting the patient back down to us on a litter. So I think it's something we're going to hear a lot more about.
I think so. That's great. You being proactive. Mhm.
And then we had one point of clarification, Christopher, for the intermittent CPR, and that would be confirming that it's for compression stopped for less than 5 minutes, correct?
Well, that's a great question. The European Resuscitation Council does have a couple different protocols that you can do, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, or 10 minutes off of CPR and 5 minutes on of CPR. The idea is that you can stop CPR for longer if somebody's hypothermic. But in the real world, like trying to time that exactly is very difficult. And what I've told the teams on Mount Hood is if you have to stop CPR to ski down to a point where you are safe and you can resume CPR and take a break, use a geographic marker, not a time, because we have, we're in the mountains. And so I don't think the time is really, there's not a lot of data on the exact amount of time. So you want to stop CPR as little as possible, but I would say don't worry too much about the exact number of minutes you're stopping CPR.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any further questions. So thank you everyone again for your time. And thank you all for joining. Have a good evening.